The Just Baseball Show is live. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you may be taking in this podcast, audio-wise on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, video-wise on YouTube, on X, or with our friends at SportsGrid. Bit of a flu game, I guess, for myself, Jack McMullen, and Aram Leighton. I don't know what's going on, man. I mean, bug is flying around right now, and I guess the topic of this show kind of fits the billing of that because there are some slow starts. There's been some drama. Just don't feel great right now, but you know what? We're tough podcasters. We're going to push through here.
Yeah, I mean, someone's got to sit in this chair and talk, and I don't know what we're going to do if I can't push through it. So I'm going to push through it. I'm actually excited. It was funny. I woke up this morning, and I know it's been a few days for us, but I was kind of battling. I'm like, all right, we're going to get out of bed. We're going to make this thing happen. I did see the list of topics, and I got out of bed a little bit easier. I was excited. There's a couple that are going to get me. It's going to be like that shot of Dayquil. That once I get talking about it. So that did pump me up.
I think so too. We're going to start with a couple of slow moving teams. That's going to be the bulk of the show, right? That's going to be segment 1 and segment 4. But Tony Vitello, again, in the headlines. Wilson Contreras in the headlines. We'll talk about Wilson and the Milwaukee Brewers. But a reminder of this show, the Just Baseball Show, is always brought to us by BetMGM. A reminder to use code JustBaseball to unlock the $1,500 new player offer on BetMGM. I want to start with the Toronto Blue Jays, I guess, because the Blue Jays are maybe the story in Major League Baseball right now. The Toronto Blue Jays, after jumping out to an okay go against the Athletics in Toronto, have dropped 5 in a row. They lost a series to the Rockies. They got swept by the White Sox in Chicago. And then they just lost 14-2 on Monday night to the LA Dodgers. It's not just the record here. It's the flies dropping. It's unbelievable the number of injuries that they have sustained. And we talk about, outside of the season, okay, the pitching was a little decimated. And, Max Scherzer was a late re-entry into the rotation here. And Scherzer started yesterday. He only went 2 innings. But Barrios has a stress fracture in his elbow that he endured in March. Shane Bieber is on the shelf right now with elbow inflammation. Trey Savage is on the shelf right now with a shoulder impingement. Cody Ponce, in his first start back in the big leagues, suffered a significant sprain in his knee. He's out for an extended period of time. Meanwhile, you've got the catcher Alejandro Kirk a couple of days ago going down with a thumb fracture. And then you've got Barger dealing with issues in both of his ankles. It's bilateral ankle discomfort. That's 2 ankles. They're trying to brand it as day-to-day. I heard John Schneider say he's progressing, but IL could still be in play. There's no answer as of Tuesday morning, but it's just crazy the hand that Toronto has been dealt. I feel terrible for them at the outset.
Yeah, I do too. I think when you look at the Jays, I mean, you want to say they just need to weather the storm, which they do, but the American League East is going to be a gauntlet. At least that's what we expected, although some of these teams are off to a slow start. You imagine that some of the teams that are off to a slow start will get right too. At the end of the day, I think the Blue Jays are in a decent spot given that a lot of other teams with this many injuries, their starting 9 would look far worse. You'd be pulling guys up from AAA that were not quite ready. You wouldn't be able to just plug in a Davis Schneider, plug in a Tyler Heineman, even a Miles Straw. At least it's not great, but to be able to weather the storm for a few weeks here and continue to add guys back one at a time, it could be worse. I think the rotation side of things is a little bit more interesting and potentially concerning depending on, just how some of these guys rise to the occasion. But then again, you see how good Dylan Cease looked the first time out. I feel like they're okay. It really sucks that you have this series where all these things cave in on you, right? And the White Sox series obviously was an ugly one. Of course, the Rockies wasn't ideal. And you don't get to really come up for air because then you get this nationally branded World Series rematch that I'm sure the players don't look at it like that. And as you're just trying to get your footing again, you're getting a red hot Dodgers team that is just going to kind of flow into what they did in game 1 and knock you around a little bit.
Yeah, it seems like it, man. And I don't know. This is John Schneider put it best, better it happen right now than in July and August when you're really trying to gear up to win a division. But we always talk about how you can lose a division in the month of April. I don't think the Blue Jays are doing that right now. I think the Red Sox are pushing to possibly do that, but we'll talk about them in segment 4. I don't know, man. It's just I look at Toronto and I see a team that is being struck by Murphy's Law, and they were not the Murphy's Law team that I had pegged going into the season. Spring training was brutal for the Atlanta Braves, but Atlanta's pitching. Like, it's just Toronto that has been hit with the injury bug just so darn bad. Again, you look at that starting five on the IL for Toronto right now. Barrios, Bieber, Savage, Bowden, Francis, who's making his way back from Tommy John surgery, and then Cody Ponce as well. That's a heck of a lot better than the rotation they're running out right now. Now, the good news is Gosman and Cease are still healthy. You've got those guys at the top of the rotation. Eric Lauer can give you good starts, but I mean, at the end of the day, Toronto, they just need to survive for the next month and a half, 2 months. I have faith that they can survive for the next month and a half, 2 months, but that was a rude, not awakening, but I guess like dagger in the heart, that 14-2 loss to the Dodgers on Monday.
Yeah, I think Miggy Rowe coming in, up 13 and actually being able to throw an 18-pitch inning and get out of there with only one earned run, I think is also just kind of a sign of just the Jays just feeling it right now, just being, let's start over tomorrow. Like, forget this. The Pat Corbin signing's interesting because like, look, they don't need Pat Corbin to be a low 3s ERA. If Pat Corbin can go out there and just give them innings, look, they're going to still mash their way to winning ball games. And as you mentioned, and as Schneider mentioned, they do just need to weather the storm. I think the bullpen is built to be able to handle a little bit of the load as well. They have some guys that can go a little bit longer. So I think they're going to be fine. But yeah, it is one of the more, and we're not even mentioning Santander in February, with the torn labrum, who a guy now that they could probably use a little bit as well. It's just been one of the more unfortunate stretches I can remember for a team here. And like we said, like, it's a good thing it happened now. And I think by the time we get to June, I think the pieces will start to come back together for the Blue Jays here. And as long as they can even just hover around 500, I think they'll be just fine.
The other interesting thing is Peyton Genius is flashing the Patrick Corbin savant page right now. Pat Corbin started the year pretty solid with Texas last year. He's 36 years old, but he can absolutely fill in. And right now, Toronto is going with a 4-man rotation. They have some healthy arms with AAA Buffalo. They also have a healthy bat that's off to a nice start. Eloy Jimenez has 9 hits in his first 7 games with AAA Buffalo. He's got a double and a homer as well. If he's ever going to get another shot in the big leagues,
it should
probably come right now.
Well, and they just need a hot hand, right? We're not going to say, oh, well, this could be Eloy could be the next piece for them for the rest of the year. No, they just need a hot 2 weeks from Eloy. I mean, Mercedes did it, right? Like, they just need a guy to get up there, catch a little bit of lightning in a bottle. It could be on the mound too, but it usually is in the form of a hitter. And that can help them, stay afloat a little bit as well. But even this B-ish team lineup, like, is still good for them. Like, if they're missing a few guys, I still think it's pretty darn solid. But, at the same time, this is a team that I think, the expectation is to get back to the World Series, and they're going to need all their pieces to do that.
This opens up a broader conversation, and we've got about 2 minutes left in this segment here. I want to get into this broader conversation because when is too early, or when is the right time to hit the panic button or hover over the panic button? For Toronto, I feel like some of their fan base could be hovering over the panic button right now with some of the slow starts. I mean, we can talk about Cal Raleigh. Like, when do you start to hover over the panic button? But Toronto's 4-6 right now. I feel like it's way, way, way too early. But I'm curious your thoughts there, individual and team-based. When do you start to even contemplate the panic button?
I think there's a lot of variables in it. I think, and we'll talk about it with a couple other teams. I think there's the clubhouse aspect, which is really hard to fully know about unless you're a beat writer, but you can kind of read the tea leaves at times. If you have like the struggling team with some suspicious quotes and some things on the field that you notice, I think that panic button could be pressed a little bit sooner. When you have a Blue Jays team that, is the definition of power of friendship. We saw that last year. There's been a bunch of incredible pieces written about how comfortable they are and how much they like to play with each other and all those different things. And then you have the other irons in the fire, which is like Shane Bieber could be back in May. Trey Savage could still be back by, May or June. All the other different pieces, I think you feel pretty good. I don't really press the panic button until like June, mid-June, and it has to be like pretty bad because then that's where the team starts to feel the pressure of we need to perform so that our team isn't sellers at the deadline. I don't really worry about anything until June-ish, but, again, there's some nightmarish optics moments that can exacerbate that or expedite it a little bit.
I think I'm a bit more reactionary with the panic button. Like, I think I'm willing to do it at the end of April, but we're still 3 weeks away from when I would comfortably hover over the panic button. For some teams, I'm not going to do it with Toronto. I may do it with this next team sooner rather than later. And you talk about clubhouse dynamic possibly factoring into that. We've got something to talk about when we come back right here on the Just Baseball Show.
Why are all these contracts being signed, folks? Yes, the players are talented. Yes, they are deserving of it, but it's such goodwill to hand out these buyout arbitration contracts for these young players this time of the year, right before opening day, to get all their fans excited. And notice, right before the Pirates' home opener, not before opening day, for their home opener, to set up.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Italy can't make the World Cup. That's wildly embarrassed.
You know, Italy, to me, I think they're like the Cowboys, right? They're the Dallas Cowboys, basically. They're this ultimate sort of public team, big merch, like, you know, monsters.
That's a good one.
Yet they really haven't won in a while. But we're talking about a world superpower.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Am I going overboard when I'm saying that? I've never seen anything like this.
He's damn good, and it seems like he has an extra focus on pitching. I saw him pitch with the Angels and hit with the Angels, and it seemed like hitting was what he was trying to prove. Maybe because guys like John Smoltz would come out and said, "Oh, he should be a pitcher only."
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Massive shift in the sports landscape that the national media desperately does not want to admit. And I am talking about Major League Baseball officially overtaking the NBA as the second most popular sport in America. And the momentum has completely flipped. Numbers don't lie.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Just Baseball Show continues. We just talk about the Toronto Blue Jays and how you're not even remotely close to the panic meter with them, even though the injuries are piling up. The question may be, and the answer may be different to the same question as it pertains to the San Francisco Giants. The Giants, as it stands right now, are 3-8. They've dropped 4 in a row. Matt Chapman was very open and honest about a base running blunder that he had. And this is on the heels of him effectively eviscerating Casey Schmidt during a mound visit in San Diego. Tony Vitello, the manager, who, again, came from the University of Tennessee. He was the head coach at the University of Tennessee. First guy to ever skip the Pro Bowl ranks entirely and go from college head coach to major league manager. He mentioned, aside from the Chapman-Schmidt mound visit altercation, there have been 2 other incidents behind closed doors that have been very similar. He said there were cuss words involved in both. It's just fascinating to me, and I know that you put out your opinion on Twitter. Like, I mean, dude, yes, okay, you've got the public interaction. Why does the world need to know about the 2 others that happened in privacy?
We mentioned behind closed doors. There's a reason why the doors are closed. You should probably just keep that one to yourself, or 2, I should say. Tony, look, I'm rooting for Tony. I really am. I hope that, you know, things start to work out for the Giants. I just think this team as constructed with the personalities that it has and the vets that it has, it was a really interesting ball club for Vitello to make the leap with. Like, I'm imagining a younger, energetic, less experienced team that could maybe be a great situation for him to launch into. This is an interesting one because when you see that there's some clubhouse friction, the college head coach is probably not the guy that's going to be able to get this right. And the thing that's interesting to me is you went out and acquired a great player in Rafael Devers. And I think the trade itself from a baseball perspective makes a lot of sense. But a big part of his issues in Boston were the friction that he had with front office, maybe the rest of the team, some other players. And that guy comes in. You have some other vets as well, right? And then you bring in the college head coach to work with those guys. That's the part that blows my mind. Tony's going to get better, I think, at the media side of things. It's not like it was at Tennessee and Knoxville where, you know, you can say whatever was happening in these college kids. There's not really any repercussions. You could say, yeah, they argued, but I whipped them into shape. We're all good now. Like, you can't do that. It's different with these guys. These are 30-plus-year-old grown men, 10-year vets, guys on 9-figure contracts, you got to keep that to yourself. I think in the early going here, we've seen Vitello be very open and willing and even start conversations like revisiting and rehashing all of the details of what happened when he left Tennessee or right before and when the reports came out. And here now is another instance of potentially oversharing. And my concern is in a situation like this where you're already just trying to get by the optics of the last situation. Why would you even bring it up so people like us can talk about it? That's my biggest problem is things are already going really rough for your team on the field. It's early. Why bring up and add fuel to the fire that there's something going on? You should be just saying, yeah, we're just not playing good ball right now. It's a 162-game season. Through 11 games, we look like crap. It's fine. Instead, it's like now all you can do is just infer that there's a lot more at hand that might be long-term concerning and that maybe he might not be the right guy to, figure this out.
I'm trying to put myself in the mind of Tony Vitello. Why would you publicize those private conversations in this moment? Is it an effort to galvanize the clubhouse? Is it an effort to say, hey, guys, what's happening even behind closed doors is unacceptable. We need to have a level of professionalism and accountability, and we just need to up the positivity in the clubhouse?
Maybe to show he's not worried about it?
I don't know. And he did mention like the caveat that the 3 blow-ups in the clubhouse have all preceded wins for the Giants. So like he tried to put a positive spin on that where it's like every time someone lashes out, we win. So maybe it should happen every single time. I don't know. It was just it was a weird spin zone to read after the fact.
Yeah. You just need about 84 more of those and you got a good shot at the wild card. So
just someone start yelling at somebody else. That would be good.
Oh man. And again, you look at this team, it's a lot of vets and personalities. I just find it interesting. And this is the most already, I feel like maybe I haven't been as tapped in the past. It's the most I've seen Matt Chapman just be in the headlines about.
It seems like it.
Stuff. At least it's anecdotal. I don't know. Maybe an Athletics fan can say something or a Giants fan that noticed something in the past. But I just feel like this is already the most I've heard from Matt Chapman in terms of issues. And also the scenario where you're ripping a teammate and then you end up making mental mistakes of your own is just an interesting other layer to it that generally tells me that there's like a diffusion of blame in the clubhouse. Like, I don't know. It's too early for this stuff.
It's too early.
We're 2 weeks in. I get it. Like July, you pack a bunch of people in a room. Dude, like, I love you. You love me. Maybe we'd get sick of each other every day in the same clubhouse for 5 months and say something we don't mean. But there's no way I'm snapping on you 12 games into the season. There's no way.
Multiple times. Maybe once in the first 12 games of the season.
I don't think I will. There's no way.
I'm with you, but like, I don't know. They spent a lot of time together, but I don't think it's happening multiple times. Revisiting the conversation about, is it too early to hover over the panic button? I feel like with what's happening with the clubhouse dynamic right now, it could be time to start hovering over it. I'm not saying push it. I'm not saying even get your hand directly over it. I'm just saying like, take a peek at it for a minute here. It's just what's going on right now is just a little weird. And this kind of thing really doesn't happen with even struggling teams 2 weeks into the season.
Yeah, again, they could have 2 good series and they're right back in the driver's seat. But my concern more is like, well, what happens when they hit some inevitable adversity in June, July, August, whenever it may come again? It's a long season. Teams hit walls all the time. So I don't know if I'm fully hitting that, like hovering over the panic button for like their season could just be over before it started. But even if they get right, how are they going to respond when they get wrong again, which happens to every single team through 162?
Every team.
I'm more like hovering over the panic button in the regards that like, I don't know if this team, and this is reactionary, obviously, but this team with this manager is built for the turbulence of 162.
I don't know, man. I'm fascinated by it, and we'll see what materializes with Tony Vitello. But and we'll see what materializes with the San Francisco Giants right now. But again, it's just bizarre that all of this is happening so quickly, and the Tony Vitello stirred up media controversy during spring training about the Tennessee job and the whole progress of him leaving and how he fractured some relationships in Knoxville.
It wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault.
It was not his fault. It was just the person that publicly aired it out. That's fault. That's whose fault it was. But again, there were just a lot of different things happening in the first chapter of Tony Vitello's Giant career. So we'll see what happens here. We'll get to some more controversy in a sec as it pertains to a Boston Red Sox here on the Just Baseball Show. All right, back on the Just Baseball show. So we just talked about the Toronto Blue Jays. We just hit on Tony Vitello and the San Francisco Giants. Now I think it's time for the Boston Red Sox and Wilson Contreras. There was a fascinating back and forth on Monday night when the Brewers were in Boston to take on the Boston Red Sox. Wilson Contreras, longtime member of the National League Central, right? Came up with the Chicago Cubs and then signed a big deal with the St. Louis Cardinals. He was traded to Boston over the offseason. Wilson Contreras was hit by a pitch, and he had some choice words after the fact. Wilson Contreras was plunked by the Milwaukee Brewers, which has happened a lot, and he effectively said, the next time he gets hit, I'm going to take one of them out. This is the direct quote from Wilson Contreras. Quote, next time they hit me again, I'm going to take one of them out. That's a message. Christian Yelich was asked about the Brandon Woodruff Wilson Contreras hit by pitch after the fact by Kurt Hogg, who does a great job covering the Brewers. Yelich said on Wilson Contreras, quote, we've seen that skit for the last 10 years. It's nothing new. Before we get into the anecdotal, opinion-based, personality-based point of this conversation, I do want to lay out some stats real quick. Wilson Contreras, over the course of his career, I believe, has played 106 games against the Milwaukee Brewers. Yeah, 106 games against the Brewers. It's his most common opponent. In 106 games, he has been hit by 24 pitches. He wasn't lying about that. It was the 24th time that he has been hit by a pitch by the Milwaukee Brewers in 106 games. For context, last year's hit by pitch leaders, Randy Arozarena was hit 27 times. It took 160 games for that to happen. Caleb Durbin was hit 24 times. It took him 136 games for that to happen. Now, more context. Wilson Contreras in 135 games last year was hit 23 times. It's not just the Brewers. Wilson Contreras is hit by a lot of pitches, and that is setup, that is approach, that is cold zones on the inner half of the plate and off the inside edge, maybe a prevalence of chase off the inside part of the plate. But Wilson Contreras has been objectively hit by a lot of pitches and more pitches than you should be hit by in 106 games against an opponent. Also, it has been going on for a decade. Wilson Contreras has been a very, very vocal villain in the National League Central for quite some time. He made sure to get out of good graces with the Chicago Cubs very, very quickly after he signed with the St. Louis Cardinals. He has made sure to, I guess, isolate the Cardinal fan base after the trade to the Boston Red Sox. And I guess it's kind of understandable that the Milwaukee Brewers wouldn't like him because he's been a very good player on a couple other divisional opponents and some rivals. But Wilson Contreras, this saga is fascinating, and it's funny because it carries with the individual more so than any team-based drama.
Yeah, I mean, they do have a common ground here where they could probably just talk this out, right? They have a diplomat on the other side, another Contreras. Why can't we get to the bottom of this thing? I don't understand. Like, that's the part that blows my. Does William just? I don't know, brother. I don't know what's going on. Like, I think clearly it's unintentional, but I think their game plan has never really changed for Wilson Contreras, which is, work it hard up and in. And I think there's obviously some frustration in their inability to execute there. I think we saw Mike Trout, he's vocalized similar things with his frustrations there. And I think it goes both ways. Like, I get it. You have to understand that if you have a very clear blue zone, like you got to be able to cover it. I don't know. If Contreras is that clear, I get it. I understand his frustration. I also feel like now he has no choice. He does have to charge the mound if he does get hit, because not only did he say he's going to do it, is that's what I assume he means by take them out. That would be the best guess. Yelich basically said you won't. So now he has to. If he gets hit and just goes to first base, not going to be good optics for him. He has to do it. So he just made his bed. So if you're the Brewers, do you call his bluff and hit him again and get him ejected? Basically, I think the pitcher would then get ejected too. Or you just see what happens. Obviously, I don't think they're ever going to intentionally hit him, but there's a chance playing the odds here. It's probably going to happen again. So what's it going to look like?
I think I would probably wait, and it's tough because Sproat doesn't get a start against them, but Sproat is the biggest body that could take it. Like, I'm trying to think, like Mizorowski hitting Wilson Contreras. If Wilson were to charge Mizorowski, that's not ending well for Jacob Mizorowski, respectfully, because like Wilson Contreras,
I don't know. He's got the length advantage.
Yeah, so
he might be able to punch him before he gets halfway to the mound.
Length is a huge thing in boxing, obviously. Wingspan, right? So that is
reach.
That's the interesting conundrum here. I don't think Milwaukee should intentionally be going after Wilson Contreras because he clearly just sent a message. It could get really ugly over the course of the next couple of days. I will tell you.
That's where I just hate these scenarios because I just find myself holding my breath every at bat. It's like, I know people love to see the fights and whatever, but like, I don't know. You're just waiting for, it's like a pressure cooker. You're just like, wait, it just gets so nerve wracking there. I go back and forth on this, but I think Contreras at this point is just trying to protect himself. I think he's just tired of getting plunked by 90+ mile per hour projectiles.
We're proud of this class. This is the weakest Hall of Fame class in the history of the Basketball Hall of Fame. This is an embarrassment to the men and women that are deservingly in that Hall of Fame. And the dead ones are rolling over in their grave right now saying, get this basketball out of my gravesite because I don't want to be associated.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Urging them to stop offering these certain sports-related contracts it believes are especially ripe for manipulation. These are markets like what is someone on the broadcast going to say during the game, which you can bet on. It's called mention markets, which could be anything like Tom Brady saying, oh, I think that they're going to run an RPO.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Quickly learning that even though the Jays, Brady went to the World Series last year, they're not like one of those automatic teams. Like I consider the Yankees automatic, Dodgers automatic. That really might be it. Maybe not even the Mets. Just like think teams you can kind of count on. They're not going to lose to Colorado. They're not going to lose to the White Sox. Those type of teams.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Invest, find somebody else in the market right now, like JJ Weatherholt or someone else, because This is the worst time, I think, to buy a guy like Griffin.
You can bring up Polymarket right now. Go to the NL Rookie of the Year page. It is a roller coaster of everybody changing from favorite to not favorite to favorite to not favorite. Look at that. It's like a earthquake happening, Craig, and the Richter scale is going nuts.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Just Baseball Show, as always, presented by BetMGM. Jack McMullen and Aram Leighton here with you. We just talked about Wilson Contreras and the hit-by-pitch fiasco with the Milwaukee Brewers. Now I want to expand the conversation to the Boston Red Sox overall, because the Red Sox right now are the worst team in baseball, record-wise. You've got the Red Sox sitting at 2-8. They've dropped 3 in a row. It is the worst start for the Boston Red Sox, I believe, in franchise history. They've never lost 8 times in their first 10 games. Yep, they've never had a worse record through the first 10 games of a season. And the Boston Red Sox have been around for a hot minute, folks. It seems like everything is going wrong for Boston right now. And I feel like a lot of it stems from the offense and the offensive lethargy that has followed them. Have they lost a couple of really tight games? Yes, they have. But at the end of the day, you got to win some of those tight games. They ran into the Cincinnati Reds, who are winning every single one-run game they find themselves in. But for Boston, like, there are some flaws being exposed right now. When you look at the Red Sox and their 10-game start, what is the glaring deficiency that jumps out to you?
That's what we were talking about in the in the weekend roundup. Is like, it just doesn't feel like they're doing really anything very well. I wish there was like one specific area I could look at and say, this is the specific spot that I think they could be far better. I just don't think they're doing anything in particular very well at all. I think the big part is just, it seems like they're giving a lot of at-bats away defensively, the miscues there. It just doesn't seem like a team that's clicking on all cylinders. Even a Ceddanne Rafaela grading out, like, he's had some bad reads, some bad luck with the wind, whatever it may be. Like, he's grading out as a negative defender right now. Like, he actually, I think by the metrics, has been one of the worst outfielders in baseball. Like that. How does that happen? That guy's a wizard. Teams are just relentlessly running on anything hit to Roman Anthony. It just feels like their Achilles heels are getting exposed while their strengths are also, being kind of cut down here a little bit. And I don't know. It just feels like nothing is quite going right for this team right now.
Did you feel like that was an issue with Roman Anthony, or could present as an issue at any point in the prospect evaluation? Like, I thought this guy was pretty darn flawless.
I always thought he'd be kind of an average defender. I think he still can be. I don't know what's going on with the arm, though. I never thought it was great, but I never thought of it as to the point where, like, he picked that ball up. And remember, he's playing left field. He's playing left field at Fenway Park. He picked that ball up not that deep into left field at Fenway Park, which is already very shallow. And the runner was on third, like touching third base when he had the ball. And the throw didn't even make it to home on a roll. I don't know if it's like a little bit of like the yips. I don't know if maybe he's dealing with something. The other part is like, and I've seen this talked about, around sports media already a little bit in the baseball world, but like, who's the leader of this team? And like, why has it almost been semi-anointed to a 21-year-old who's going to go through his own turbulence of this year in Roman Anthony? Like, who is the leader of this Red Sox team? It's not the guy that says he's going to take out the other team that they just acquired.
No. And what's the right answer? Is it Crochet?
Trevor Story? I feel like he just shows up to work and does his job. I don't think maybe he's a lead by example guy. The other side is like the infield, which we were extremely concerned about. Which letting Bregman walk and then having the, just like kind of piecing it together how they could. I think Caleb Durbin's going to be better, but anytime a team trades a rookie of the year runner up, you probably have to wonder if they feel like they're selling high there. Story, Monasterio, and Caleb Durbin have an OPS plus of 7 over 88 plate appearances, according to Podcast P. Like, that's a big problem too. But I think there is like a little bit of what is this team's identity? Who is the leader? This is where, Alex Cora, who we earns a lot of high marks, right? This is where I think a lot lies on Cora to kind of help this team sift through that.
So real quick, I just want to get this out of the way, and then I've got a couple other Red Sox thoughts, just statistically based. But Again, we talk about panic button, how there are factors there that can start to get you looking in the general vicinity of the panic button. 2.5 weeks into the season, 2 weeks into the season here. And one of them is clubhouse dynamic, which is why you start to maybe side-eye the panic button in San Francisco. Clubhouse dynamic, is that kind of bleeding into where you may start to side-eye the panic button in Boston? I also think just divisional power is important here. You talked about Toronto. They're going to be fine, but at the end of the day, like, Toronto and Boston both can't scuffle and then come out the other side of this. Like, every single month has to matter in the AL East. If you were in the AL Central, you can get away with a dreadful month because the overall firepower in that division is just not good enough to, stiff arm a team that has 5 amazing months. Toronto could have 5 amazing months and they still might be in trouble and still not win the division. Boston could have 5 amazing months, but if they're 2-8 over a 10-game stretch at the outset of the year, like, you're already working uphill and it's getting pretty darn steep at this point.
Well, and there's a lot of interesting things because I think pitching was going to be the strength for this team, especially once you let Bregman walk and you roll into the year with the infield that you have. I think they have some guys that can hit, no doubt about it. But I think clearly pitching was going to be the strength, and you hope that they were going to defend pretty well in certain spots. Trevor Story's 33 years old, right? And he's had a lot of injuries in his career. If Trevor Story loses a step, who do you roll out to shortstop? Then do you end up rolling Marcelo Meyer out there? Do you end up just having Trevor Story playing that position all the time? If Caleb Durbin doesn't pick it up, what are your contingency plans? Is it going to be then rolling out Christian Campbell, who's positionless but maybe can hit a little bit more? I'm just interested to see what the plan Bs are for this team too. I know they're going to pitch the ball better. I have little concern about that. Peyton Toley's still kicking in AAA. I think Connolly Early is going to be great all year. Garrett Crochet is one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. They have a lot of reasons. Ranger Suarez is going to settle in and be better. I feel decent about that. Sonny Gray is going to typically be Sonny Gray. I look more at the defense and the offensive side of things, and I struggle to figure out quite what the strength is. Outfield defense would be that, but then are you going to DH your young, potential superstar all the time in favor of that defense and Roman Anthony? And then even then, is it enough to compensate for what the infield looks like? I don't know. And I think that's the big question.
So one statistical thing that jumps out to me here with the Boston Red Sox and with their offense overall right now. The Boston Red Sox as a team with runners in scoring position this year, and it's been 77 at-bats here, 92 plate appearances overall. With runners in scoring position, they have a 276 on-base percentage. They're hitting 208, which is bottom 5 in baseball, but a 276 OBP with runners in scoring position is second worst in baseball, only ahead of the Cincinnati Reds. And again, the Reds are pitching their way to this hot start that they're at right now. For me, runners in scoring position right away is a big thing there, and you just need to see at-bat quality get really good with runners in scoring position. And Boston, they're getting on base in lower leverage situations, but when it comes time to drive in some runners, they are not, putting the ball in play often. They're not hitting at a high batting average, and they're just not getting on base. Like, the at-bat quality needs to get better when you feel like a pitcher may be pressing, and that's just not happening with Boston at all. And it could be team identity right now. It could just be a bunch of guys off to a slow start. You mentioned Durbin, Story, Monasterio, but there are more guys than that. There are more star athletes in that lineup there that just need to see a bunch of pitches with runners in scoring position and apply pressure. It just feels like there's no pressure being applied by this Boston lineup.
100%. I think the guy that's been giving them as good of at-bats as anybody not named Wilyer Abreu has been Masataka Yoshida. And how do you fit him in when Roman Anthony is the guy that you might end up slotting into the DH spot more frequently now, and there's nowhere to get Yoshida into the lineup unless you want to put a first base glove on him and make him the shortest first baseman in Major League history. I don't really know what they would do there. The other thing is you have an interesting situation where Garrett Crochet, and I don't know if there's more to this or not, where Garrett Crochet is not throwing to Carlos Narvaez. I know there's a little bit of history to that. And even the quote out last night was is Narvaez catching Crochet tomorrow? And of course, I said probably not. I know in the past, Crochet said there's a lot of things in pitch calling that I don't do that he was doing. I think that part's interesting as well. There's some wrinkles here for sure. And this is still a super talented team. But as we talked about it going into the year, I think that infield can be a problem for them. And in the early going, it looks like a problem for them.
Yeah, it totally does, man. We are going to get to the injury conversation and, of course, our clutch performers of the week presented by Morgan & Morgan a little bit later on in the Just Baseball show. But the Boston Red Sox off to a 2-8 start to the season. They have never started this poorly in the history of the Boston Red Sox franchise. So when does it turn around? Does it turn around? We shall see. We push to injuries next on the Just Baseball show. Cade Horton is going to Dr. Keith Meister in Dallas today after his MRI results were, quote, not clean and not good, according to Jesse Rogers at ESPN. Cade Horton is going to get a second opinion on the MRI that he had, but it was initially diagnosed as a forearm issue. It's never good when the MRI comes back negative like that. And this would feel like we're getting robbed as baseball fans of one of the brightest young pitching stars in baseball. And it's also an absolute anvil on the Cubs pitching plans here because they needed Horton and Boyd to be healthy, and they're just not at the outset of the year.
Yeah, I mean, and Horton is just a guy that's already battled through a little bit. Came off of TJ even before his pro career, but then had some arm issues through the minor leagues that were relatively minor. Cubs managed his workload, and he gets up to the big leagues, handles the workload last year, and had so much success. And I think was such a key part of what you could envision, if everything goes right for the Cubs this year, why they can be a team that can make a run. And love the offense, love what they can do on the defensive side of things. They go out and get Edward Cabrera, and then through 2 starts, he looks like a great addition, right? And you feel so good about all the pieces potentially coming together here. And Matthew Boyd having the year that he had, and having the opportunity to start opening day for them. You're going to get Steele back at some point, and now you look at it and say, it used to be like, okay, we're going to get Justin Steele back if you're a Cubs fan, and that's really going to push us across the finish line. Like that's almost like a jolt, it's a deadline acquisition. Now it's like, thank goodness we're going to get Justin Steele back. We don't even know if it's going to look like the top form of Justin Steele, but crap, like if we get 60% of Justin Steele, that's huge for us right now. So I think that's the craziest part is like, you're desperately waiting for the return of a guy off TJ here to help you. You hope that the Boyd thing is more minor and he can get back sooner rather than later. And then all of a sudden you start wondering, like, do the Cubs start getting a little bit aggressive here with some of their prospects? And do they start looking at a Jackson Wiggins who still has some command issues to come up here and help them? I think they might need to. And whether that's as like a starter or a piggyback guy that gives you 3 diabolical innings with the elite stuff that he has, it is something to look at with a non-40 man prospect there. It's just really unfortunate that this early in the season, the Cubs are running into these injury issues. And also going into the year, I probably would have said Edward Cabrera is the biggest injury liability for them, right? I mean, it's a guy that, underwent an MRI in September and it didn't come back perfectly clean. Obviously, they had to check some boxes for the trade to go down, but the fact that Cabrera is the guy that's hanging on here early is, you just hope he can, continue to handle the workload through the rest of the year. It's interesting. I think they're going to need Javier Assad to continue to just dodge barrels like we've seen him in the past and need innings for them.
Yeah, and Edward Cabrera, I mean, he has been the savior of this Cub rotation right now. He was the one that kickstarted that one-hit win and a 1-0 win, game one of the doubleheader on Sunday in Cleveland. But I just saw a funny comment here on our YouTube live. Lucas Giolito's agent can't sleep at night. That could be the Giolito fit at this point right now. But Peyton also dropped us Kyle Wright, Vince Velasquez, both throwing for the Iowa Cubs right now. The Cubs are in the market for innings accumulation. Like, they are in the innings business right now, and they're going to need some guys to eat some innings for them. And it's just really unfortunate what happened, because you go into this year and you're saying, okay, Horton, with the rookie season that he had, we can look at him as a borderline frontline starter, right? Matthew Boyd was an all-star last year. We can look at him as a borderline frontline starter. When the stuff is right and when he is in the vicinity of the strike zone, which we saw last year, Edward Cabrera is a borderline frontline starter. It was looking like a possible strength of the Cubs, and now it's, where the heck do we go from here, where Shota and Tyone, along with Cabrera, are your other two most reliable starters?
I say thank goodness for Tyone. That guy's just, it's going to eat innings and be reliable for you, and they're going to need more of him as well. And thank goodness for Colin Ray. It's just been the long guy for them and someone that can step up and fill in there, and he's looked good so far this year as well. But Shota's going to need to put it all together for them and give them better innings. And I know he's better the second time out, and I think that's going to be a big piece for them as well. And then you wonder how long it'll be until they get Seiya back, because I know that doesn't help the pitching situation, but this team's just going to have to rake and defend their way through this. And just as you mentioned, have guys out there just to throw innings, to get through it. 4.5 ERA, that's fine. They're going to need to mash, weather the storm, and get these guys back. But the concern is, what if you don't get Horton back? And what if, I think it's a little bit more minor with Boyd, but even just through that lens, what if you don't get Horton back, right? So you get Steele back, and I'm just preparing for the doomsday. I hope to everything that Horton does come back. What do you do? You're not going to be able to acquire an arm until June, July, most likely, unless, a team with a pitcher is just terrible. What do you do about it? Do you just start shopping on the free agent side and hope you unlock something?
Maybe you could also kind of look at, 40-man guys in AAA right now that are kind of phased out of situations, teams with pitching surpluses. I think that there could be like a small trade that pays dividends for the Cubs. I have no idea what it looks like. You can also just kind of scour the waiver market, right? We're probably a week or two away from a starting pitcher being DFA'd. Do you start playing the claim carousel game that Atlanta played last year and hoping they struck gold with Eric Fetty or Cal Quantrill or Joey Wentz, I think, was a midseason claim for Atlanta last year, and he was actually serviceable. I guess you got to hope for like your waiver claim, like Joey Wentz adjacent for Chicago, but I have no idea. Real quick, Juan Soto, he officially hits the shelf. Juan Soto is on the IL with a calf issue. He's expected to miss 2 to 3 weeks. Juan Soto, over the course of his career, has really not missed baseball games. In 2019, he played 150 of 162. In 2020, 47 of 60. In 21, 151. In 22, 153. In 23, he played all 162. In 24, he played 157. And last year, he played 160 ball games. This is really the first time that Juan Soto is going to miss multiple weeks of a major league season. It's unfortunate for the New York Mets. They have the firepower to stomach this, and thank goodness for them that it's happening in the month of April, but just a little weird to see a lineup mainstay hit the shelf.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It really is. And I think they're probably erring on the side of caution, just to make sure that he's ready down the stretch there. And, obviously the Mets have a lot of players that can still swing it. But that is the definition of a lineup mainstay for you that you love to have out there. It's interesting though, because you look at it now and like probably just more runway for Beatty to consistently play. He slides over to the outfield, and I mean, I think no one's going to replace Juan Soto, but they at least have good lineup depth here to be able to plug different guys in. I don't know if they'd brought like Mauricio up to add him to the bench. That's a guy that if he gets hot, can just keep you going there. Jared Young has been hitting the ball hard and playing a little bit of corner outfield. So they have all of the pieces to stay afloat. No one is going to replace Juan Soto. I'm going to make that abundantly clear. But this offense can swing it. We've talked about that, and the fact that they have the depth that they have to be able to go plug in, other guys there to that I think can be a 115 WRC plus in aggregate or even on their own in a Brett Beatty, I think makes things a lot better.
Bad franchises do bad things, Kevin.
You know what I'm saying? You know what, though, man?
The Cleveland Browns. Todd Monken missed the NFL head coach's photo shoot because the guy was getting his hair cut.
Yeah.
So what do you think? You're on the cover of the team, coach? You're sitting next to Andy Reid, bro. Put on a golf shirt, shut up, and sit down. Oh, I got to get my hair done.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Miami today laying 17.5. Miami wins, get a load of this, 152. When you hear 152, I don't care if you're laying 100. You're thinking you're winning that bet, right? They win 152 to 136. They only win by 16. Washington get the backdoor cover.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Kansas City trading as a favorite, Joe. Do we think that's the possibility of that first game?
Yeah, they should make it the Jets, Donnie, so they can guarantee a win in front of their fans to open up the set. I'm just saying. I mean, that's what I would do. But no, I mean, ideally the NFL would love a Kansas City reunion at Buffalo in the new stadium.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
There's a basketball player who's 7'9". He's insignificant on his team. And quite frankly, I don't know if he goes Division 1, 2, or 3 at this point and will be significant. Joe, how can you be 7'9" and not be able to get on the court in college basketball? Shouldn't he be maybe, I don't know, the most dominant shot blocker in the history? I watched Manu Bol be a really good player at times in the NBA.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, tying a bow on the Just Baseball show here. We will give you clutch performers. As always, they are presented by Morgan & Morgan. When we talk about clutch in baseball, we're talking about the player you want at the plate or on the mound at the bottom of the ninth with the season on the line. It's about power, it's about results, and most importantly, it's about having someone in your corner who doesn't blink under pressure. And look, life can throw you some nasty curveballs. If you're ever injured in an accident, whether it's a car crash, a slip and fall, or a workplace injury, you need that same clutch mentality on your side. You don't just need a lawyer, you need the heavy hitters. You need Morgan & Morgan. Why Morgan & Morgan? They're America's largest injury law firm. They have over 1,000 attorneys and 35 years of experience fighting for the people. Think about this. They've recovered over $30 billion for their clients. That's not just a win, that's a dynasty. Whether it's a fender bender or something much more serious, they have the resources to go the distance. The best part, scouting report on your case is free. Submitting a claim is incredibly easy. You can do it right from your phone in 8 clicks or less. It's faster than a pitching change. And get this, the fee is free unless they win. They don't get paid unless you get paid. If you're injured, check out Morgan & Morgan. You can go to forthepeople.com. When the stakes are high, don't settle for a base hit. Go with the firm that hits home runs. This is a paid advertisement. Now, let's get to this week's first clutch performance, and it's a Lifetime Achievement Award. I dish out the Lifetime Achievement to Jose Ramirez. Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Guardians has just now on Monday set the franchise record by playing in 1620, I believe his 1620th ball game as a member of the Cleveland Guardians. But J-Ram, he held up third base. He was fired up about it on Monday night ahead of Cleveland's game at Progressive Field. Jose Ramirez is officially, I think, the greatest Cleveland Guardian in the history of that franchise.
I was going to say, even if they don't win anything, is there ever been a guy that's more deserving to have his jersey retired that hasn't won anything? I'm sure there are. I'm being hyperbolic there and that with loading that question, but not in recent memory that I can think of. A guy that doesn't win the rings that, you end up looking in hindsight and valuing the guy even more because you won a couple championships. Like, I feel like what he has done for Cleveland, but not only just in the player that he is, his story is kind of more of an unsung guy, lower, ticket IFA guy, late bloomer, has the career that he has. But taking these team-friendly deals for a team that it definitely makes a difference for, staying there when he could have signed with so many major markets. I feel like there's not many players that have meant more to their franchise in recent memory than what Jose Ramirez has been able to do. And they might win. Like, they've made the playoffs, so right. He's brought them to the big stage. They've done a lot of great things, and I'm sure they'll continue to make the playoffs before he retires. But I just think what he has done for baseball in Cleveland, the franchise doesn't look anything like it does right now without one guy. And that's really hard to say about a baseball franchise because usually one player can't do that.
It's nearly impossible to say about one guy, but Jose Ramirez is certainly that guy. Next one that we want to talk about here, hottest hitter in baseball right now, Andy Pages of the LA Dodgers, man. I know there's not necessarily a clutch moment, like an individual moment, but what this guy has done over the course of the season for the LA Dodgers, you would never expect that the guy who couldn't hit the water if he fell out of a boat in September and October last year would be the best player for the Dodgers and in baseball through the first 2 weeks of the season. But that's exactly what Andy Pages has been.
And I mean, with Mookie Betts out and even like, I feel like this team obviously is still performing and clicking on all cylinders in a lot of ways. But I feel like a big part of that is what Andy Pages has brought to the table, because what's clutch about him is that he's going to impact the game in just about every single facet. But we're seeing now how valuable he can be when he's, really, really swinging it offensively. And he's been capable of this. Like we saw it in the first half last year. It just was that really rough second half that ultimately slowed him down. But I mean, he's been by far their best hitter in the early going, which I think is kind of saying a lot given the fact that you have a lot of different players above average in the offensive department by WRC plus. But I mean, what Pages has brought to the table for them in every single facet, I think is about as clutch as it gets.
So last one for you that we've got here. The Washington Nationals, what they did on Monday night against the St. Louis Cardinals was amazing, the eighth inning. And it was all capped off by a laser beam from James Wood. It was an 114-mile-an-hour home run. Wood and the Nats, they put up a concrete clutch performance on Monday night against St. Louis.
This offense is going to hit. I think they're going to have a lot of clutch performances because they're going to be down a lot. And they're going to bang a little bit and hit their way back into ball games. So, I know they're not going to win a ton of games this year, but James Wood, when it's late and close, this is a crazy stat in his career already so far. 116 games. He's slashing 325, 446, 719. That's good for an 1165 OPS with 10 homers. And also, Jack, real quick, you want some clutch potential signings for the Cubs to maybe rescue them? Marcus Stroman, still a free agent. Alex Cobb, still a free agent. I think Tyler Anderson, still a free agent. Maybe one of those guys can save him.
Interesting. We shall see what happens, man. But James Wood, if I have this tally right, 24 extra base hits in 114 at-bats late and close. That's unbelievable. What a high clip he's working at right now. 114 at-bats, 24 extra base hits. We'll see what the Cubs want to do on the free agent front, and we'll see how this drama unfolds as the big league season continues to progress. Thank you so much for joining us again, wherever you took in this podcast. Apple Pods, Spotify, YouTube, X, or SportsGrid. For Aram and Peyton, I'm Jack. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you, everybody.